Started school 2011. I heard about this thing called cryptocurrencies. That's what we were studying. A lot of the students were talking about it, so I got into crypto. The first Bitcoin I ever bought was $80. The reason why I focus on XRP a lot is because I believe that it's one, undervalued, and two, I think that a lot of people overlook it. AI is a very powerful tool. AI has the power to run, control, and enhance our society in ways we can't even imagine. Michael Saylor, I've talked to him and met him a couple of times.
I just sat down with Armando Pantoja. He's a futurist, he's an author, and he's an XRP bull. During this interview, Armando and I discussed what the future looks like and how it's going to be impacted by AI. We discussed how he was an early adopter of Bitcoin and Ethereum. We also discussed his path into cryptocurrency given his degree in software engineering. This was truly one of the coolest discussions that I had here in the Coin Zone, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, here's my interview with Armando Pantoja. So you have almost 1 million followers on Instagram. You have over 70K on X. You won the IBM Blockchain Award in 2020. You have your book, Crypto Secrets, The Strategic Millionaire. You've been on the floor in the NYSE doing interviews. You've been everywhere, man, and we got you here in the Coin Zone. So I appreciate you for tapping in with us. And how are you today, brother?
I'm good, doing great. Just got off a tour, a couple of cities. It's exciting what we're working on and what we're able to, how we're able to bring people on board in the world of crypto, emerging technology. So I'm blessed to be here and also happy for you guys having me today.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. The things I want to talk to you most about. You're a futuristic. You look into the future, as do I. I'm mostly excited about what AI has to offer and obviously what blockchain has to offer. But let's just start with, how you made that jump from TradFi into blockchain and crypto. What was it that made you, in your mind, switch from TradFi into blockchain and these newer technologies?
Yeah, my background is actually in software engineering. In early 2000s, I graduated in 2005 with a degree in software engineering. And I went and played basketball for a couple of years in Puerto Rico and a couple other countries. And then after that, I wasn't going to be a superstar, and I knew that. So I really wanted to get involved back in the software engineering, what I went to school for. So I took a job around 2007 at a company called EdgeNet. It was an early AI company in Nashville. Did that for about a year or so, and then I moved to Florida, and I did that and I went to, I didn't really like the path that I was taking. So I said, well, I'm gonna go back to grad school. So I went to grad school, and then I'm talking to my advisor, and he said, well, you have to pick a path. And I said, well, software engineering. And he said, well, you have to pick a specialty. And I'd always been interested in software security. So I said software security. He said, well, you have to specialize even further down. So he gave me a list of things to specialize in. And one of those things on the list was cryptography. And I said, okay, well, that sounds interesting. Let's go there. So I started studying cryptography, which is the study of encryption between, computer systems. So if you send messages across, it's really a study of all messages, but it's related. This particular path was related to computers. So messages that go back and forth, they can be, email information or or data from websites, whatever. You have to encrypt those messages so a third party is not able to see what you're sending back and forth. So it could be bank information, anything. So I got into that around 2010. I started school. 2011, I heard about this thing called cryptocurrency. Now because that's what we were studying. A lot of the students were talking about it. So I got into crypto, and I'd already been, trading stocks for 10 years prior to that, but I never got really deep into it until I started getting into cryptocurrency. And, in the first years, people didn't talk much about the finance side of crypto. It was more about the technology. But over time, over those 3 or 4 early years, it started to become more of a financial instrument. People started investing in it, whatever. So it brought my interest into traditional finance. So I created a company also called iStock Picker, and it won some awards with Benzinga, about 10, 12 years ago. And that's really how I got into stocks and understanding how technical analysis works, how stocks move, and, because I built that system. So that, along with the studying about crypto and everything, got me to another project called ICO Ranker in 2017. Now, 2017 was a big year for cryptocurrency, and one of the drivers of that year was something called ICOs, initial coin offerings. And that's like the NFTs of that time. So they went crazy. There was a lot of hype behind it. So we had a site called ICO Ranker, which would take these ICOs and try to rank or predict their success. And we were the third biggest crypto site on the planet at that time. And we got acquired by a publicly traded company. and that set me up. I was at that point I was a multimillionaire, so I really didn't know what I was going to do next. So I started going online, talking about all this stuff, and that took off as well. So that got me to where I am today. You know, teaching people about cryptocurrency, going around the world, being an advocate and an evangelist for emerging technologies, and also being able to apply finance and my financial background, and also the understanding of how TradFi works to this emerging technology.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were studying cryptography back when Bitcoin was first getting started. So what did you buy Bitcoin early on? Did that
Yeah,
lead to your
and that's a
success
funny
financially?
story. I bought it when it was the first Bitcoin I ever bought was $80. So you got to remember, this time there was no information
Wow.
online. There was a few forums. Some of the students were talking about it. So I had it. I was like, what am I going to do with this? Because there wasn't a lot of people that even accepted it. It was actually a place close to college that accepted it. It was a Vietnamese restaurant. That was it. So I said, what am I going to do with this? So I went to a forum and I started asking around. Remember, this was 15 years ago. So I'm asking around, and then a guy says, hey, I can take that Bitcoin, I can double it. And God, you know what happened? I sent the money, and of course I got ripped off. But that also set me on the path I am today, because I was in college, I was a grad student, I was desperate, so I took that risk. Even on the back of my mind, I kind of knew it was a scam. But sometimes you're so desperate, you take these risks, and I lost a couple $100, but it also made me realize how valuable. If somebody went to that length to steal it, must be pretty valuable. So it led me down a path of education, learning about crypto. I ended up buying a lot more Bitcoin, and especially Ethereum is really what made me a lot of money, because I got into that at $6 in 2015. No, 16, yeah, early 16. Late 15, early 16, I got average price of around $6. So that experience actually led me to where I was at. So I got ripped off the first experience, but after that, I learned, I grew, and I made a lot of money by investing in cryptocurrency early.
Wow. So you made a lot of predictions too about cryptos in the future, in particular XRP. You're a big XRP guy. So what led you from Bitcoin and ETH, obviously the two biggest, to, well, I guess XRP as of today is actually the fourth biggest behind BNB. But what made you switch from Bitcoin and ETH to being really an XRP maxi? What was it?
My number one crypto actually is Ethereum. I think that has the most potential. That's the one that I guess my favorite crypto. But XRP, I believe, has more investor potential. There's a few reasons for that. One is that I believe that when people look at crypto, like the first 5 cryptos, which includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, they tend to see XRP as a lagger because of the price movements in XRP and Bitcoin are so dramatic, because the overall prices are, because there's less units. Like if Bitcoin goes up 50%, we're at 100, we're at 200, 180, 200,000. But if XRP goes up 50%, it's only at 450. So people say, well, it'll only move to $1.50. I hear that all the time from, especially, new investors. They see those bigger prices a lot more attractive. Even though percentage gains is the same, they don't see that. And the second reason is because XRP was artificially held down for like 5 or 6 years by the SEC, which didn't allow them to innovate, didn't allow them to market. They had to spend all their effort, all their time, and all their capital on defending the lawsuit. So now that that's 90% over, they're free to innovate and do all these other things. And they're the only ones with the corporate structure. They're the only ones that have actually a real, corporate team that's working on their success, which mostly Ethereum has the Ethereum Foundation, but Bitcoin has no team working on the success. It's just people out there that really are invested in the success, but there's no corporate team. So I think that long term, XRP also has lobbyists, which they could be bad or good, but the other coins don't have lobbyists because there's no corporate structure behind it. So I think that XRP has a lot of potential that a lot of people are missing, because they're so focused on the bigger dollar amount value cryptos out there. And also it's been down so long that people have negative connotation with it. But I believe that's a recipe for a big jump here soon.
Yeah. We talked about that on the channel here as well. The Operation Choke Point 3.0 now. You have JP Morgan, Bank of America, etc., trying to block Ripple from getting a banking license. Yeah, totally understand that. So can you talk a little bit more about RLUSD and the potential to push XRP forward in the whole ecosystem there as well?
Yeah, I mean, RLUSD is relatively new. It came out late last year, and it's similar. It's similar to how Ethereum works. Is that there's a blockchain in which you can do smart contracts, a lot of other programmable DeFi and all these other things. Now XRP has a platform, Ripple does, but still XRP is the fee that you use to pay for these things. But there's a platform now in which you can do things like NFTs, DeFi, and projects and do development on it. It just can't, to be honest, it just came out. It's not even a year old. And it's doing extraordinarily well for something that's just come out, especially under the environment that XRP is under. So I think that has a path. And one thing that I didn't think about when I was when I'm promoting, trying to get people to buy XRP, is that I thought the main driver was going to be the replacement eventually of Swift, or either the semi-replacing it. But now with RLUSD, there's a path for tokenization. Ripple and XRP are working with a lot of big real estate developers to get real estate on that blockchain and tokenized, and a lot of tokenized art and all these other things. I think that's a big market for crypto in the future, is tokenization, and that allows XRP to be part of that future through the RLUSD.
Yeah. I've said on the channel here, I think real world assets is going to be one of the bigger narratives for this cycle. And I'm glad you mentioned Swift too. There's been a lot of debate and maybe a lot of misinformation going around about the Swift integration. A lot of people in the Chainlink community think that Chainlink is going to take the place of XRP, and Swift is just going to use other blockchains or create their own, which I believe they're actually doing. So could you maybe dispel some of that as misinformation and talk about how XRP still is helping in that respect with cross-border payments?
It all comes down back to somebody posted on one of my pages. I was talking about XRP earlier, and they said that XRP goes against the ethos of what cryptocurrency is. And if we go back a lot farther, let's say to 2016, 17, I hated XRP with a passion. And I'll tell you why. Because back then, I believed that XRP was against the ethos of cryptocurrency. They're decentralized, but they're not decentralized in the way that Bitcoin and Ethereum are. They're a pro-bankers coin, which at the time I was against bankers. I was more atheist, not atheist, but anti-government back then. So back then I was against XRP. I hated it. I wouldn't even buy it. I don't care if the price would go up or not. I would not buy it. But in 2019, I went to it, and at this point I hated it. I was at a crypto conference, and this was back. 2019 was a year. It was a weird year because it was after 17, 18, the big run up in 17, 18, early 18. Bitcoin crashed severely, and all of cryptocurrency. Ethereum went from $1,400 all the way down to $80 that year. And Bitcoin went all the way down to, I believe, under 3,000 at the beginning of the COVID. So it went from, Bitcoin was at 20 and went all the way down to 3,000. XRP went all the way down into the 18, 19 cents at the lowest. So I'm at a conference, and at this time, nobody was really interested in Bitcoin. So it was a bunch of corporate dudes, There was no excitement, no girls, none of that stuff. The year before was a lot wild. 2018 was the wildest conference I've ever been to because that was the hype cycle. All these assets went up a lot. It was crazy parties, Lambos everywhere. But by 19, all that hype was gone. So I went to the same conference, and I'm sitting next to a banker guy, and I'm talking about cryptocurrency, and I'm all excited. And he's like, well, my bank sent me on a discovery mission here. And I'm just looking around to see if our bank could do anything with this. But, I don't like this. And I'm like, why, man? Bitcoin's the future. Ethereum, everything. He says, what if something happens? Who do we do a lawsuit against? And I'm like, well, it's not supposed to be like that. Well, is any company behind this, technical support, anything? No. And I was arguing back and forth with him. And then in the middle of that conversation, it hit me. There's a place for XRP in the world. A lot of these old time, people, which control most of our banking systems, people that are, in their 50s and 60s, they're not comfortable with Bitcoin because there's nobody behind it. There's no CEO they can point to. There's nobody that XRP, even though it's not, it's not owned by Ripple, but Ripple controls almost all of it. So XRP is a place, once everything's settled, XRP starts doing well, innovation comes back. That's somewhere that the traditional finance will want to place their money because of that structure behind it. Ripple, the CEOs on TV, like a regular CEO talking on CNBC and all these other CNN. So that's somebody that they'll trust XRP a lot more than these other coins because of that. And that's why I think people are missing out with XRP.
Yeah, I think that's super valid. For example, we just had Trump who just signed a deal with crypto.com, and that's one CEO, one person that he can personally negotiate
Exactly.
with and have meetings with. He can't do that with
No.
Bitcoin. You know, Vitalik exists for Ethereum, but it's still different, as you said.
Yeah.
So how important do you think Brad Garlinghouse and David Schwartz are to the success of XRP then?
I think they're very important because back to that same point is that a lot of corporations, banks all over the world, they're going to want somebody, especially the big banks, they want to be able to pick the phone up and call Brad Garlinghouse and negotiate with him, talk to him, ask him questions. That's how business deals are done. Even though we're in a new age with the internet and all these other things, people still do business like the same way they did 100 years ago. They want to sit down in a smoke-filled room and talk about deals and, go out, take him out, they want to take him out to dinner. They want to do all these things. And that's how deals are still made, the bigger deals. So that's the way Brad Garlinghouse is the only person that's the head, more or less, of a crypto that can still do those things. Vitalik is a great guy, but, he's not going to do that because he really doesn't have as much power over the ecosystem as Brad Garlinghouse has over XRP. So I think that the traditional crypto people see it as a negative, and I did for a long time. And it hit me, and it's actually a positive for traditional banking.
Yeah, it's a good point. And right now, obviously the government shut down, so we're yet to see, unfortunately, if we're going to see all these ETF approvals late in October and some more in November. How important do you think ETFs are going to be and the institutional adoption of cryptocurrency for the success of XRP and other altcoins as well?
Yeah, I think that's very important. It's more capital that's going to flow in. And I've always said this too, is that a couple of things have to happen with crypto before the masses really, truly accept it. One is they have to, and this is the sad thing, really, I believe, about finance in general, is that the average person who's not active, actively educating themselves, going, stepping out of their comfort zones, they're just going to work back and forth every day. They're not looking at crypto podcasts. They're not searching. They're just waiting for something to come up so they can invest in it. So they look at crypto as extraordinarily risky. Even the average person still does. The average run-of-the-mill 9-to-5 worker sees crypto as extraordinarily risky. Price is volatile. They don't really understand the value. They don't understand even how it's stored or where it comes from. So that to a person who's just saving up their 401k so they can retire with an RV and just have enough to travel the country and just live a good life, that's extraordinarily risky to them. They're not. The average person is looking for 8-9% returns a year over 30 years, and that's how they retire. So they're looking for institutional votes of confidence, and when they see those banks start to buy it, when they see big players start to buy, when they see the volatility start to come down, that's when masses will move into cryptocurrency. And I don't think it's going to be a real mass migration of the average person until those two things happen.
Yeah. So if you were to have a conversation with some of these individuals, obviously a lot of people use the word scam. It's unfortunate. What do you look for in metrics, whether it's XRP, Ethereum, or anything else in cryptocurrency that says to you, screams to you, this isn't a scam? And what would you tell those individuals as well?
Some people say XRP is a scam, but it's been around too long and there's too much capital in it for it to be a scam. So the average person, back to what I said, they do see cryptocurrency, all of it as a scam. And to be honest, to be 100% honest, 90% of it is a scam. But that doesn't mean it's bad. 90% of stocks in general are scams. And I say this because we only look at stocks like the blue chips, like NVIDIA, Coca-Cola, and all these other stocks. And we say, well, the stock market is good. But if you go into that darker market, OTC, penny stocks, almost all of those are pumps and dumps. So if you count those into what you consider the world of stocks, then a lot of stocks are scams. And that's what people tend to do with crypto. They put it all in this one world of crypto. And they said, well, most of these are scams. Well, you discount a lot of the meme coins, a lot of the pumps and dumps, and you look at the 50 or so solid projects, then you'll see that there's always been constant growth in those projects. So when a person looks at crypto, you have to understand is there is a dark market in crypto. There's a pump and dumps. There's people, there's things I don't agree with at all. There's meme coins which have no value. Some, very few do, but some do, but most don't. There's pumps and dumps. There's money grabs, just like any other market. You just have to be careful and do your own due diligence. But one thing that I look for in a scam project is that I'm still a big believer in utility value, and I don't think that a coin can go on in the future a long term without some type of utility. That's why I don't really believe in 98% of meme coins. And I'm not saying all are bad, because there's some meme coins like Doge or like Floki, in which they start as a meme coin. They were able to raise capital or whatever, got a strong community, and they're able to convert that coin into something else, which Floki's doing and which Doge is doing. Payment systems or reward systems or communities in which your tokens allow you voting access, or Floki's working on a DAO. See, sometimes a meme coin can turn into a utility. That's perfectly fine. But coins that exist only as meme coin, eventually the value drops out. So you have to be careful with that. Is that you always, my personal thing is I look for value, a problem that this coin is going to solve. And two is that you want to make sure the team itself is vetted, make sure the team has projects under their belt. They're not just a couple of people, a few people that nobody's ever heard of. You want to look for some big names attaching themselves to projects, because once they do that, they've already vetted it. You want somebody of some, value in the corporate world, or either in just the crypto world, to attach themselves to it. Those two things normally will help you avoid scams, and you don't have to worry about, losing your money. But I would say just don't look for extraordinarily high returns. That's hard. Remember is that every story we hear of somebody putting 100 into a crypto and made $1 million, there's 1,000 people who lost everything. That's how bad it is. 1,000 people lose everything, and one guy will make millions. So you just have to be careful and do due diligence and practice risk management.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And I think there's also one aspect that's commonly overlooked when it comes to the success of crypto projects, and it's revenue. And I think Hyperliquid might be a good example of this right now. How important do you think it is? And this could tie back to what you said with having a company or a figure like Brad Garlinghouse behind a project as well. How important do you think revenue is for some of these cryptocurrencies to last long term?
Revenue is a type of value, right? It's money flowing in. So that's utility. If there's some type of revenue coming in for either DeFi or whatever the project is, that's a votes of confidence that the system is valuable for somebody out there. And that's something else that I would look for, is that any kind of inflows that's not just speculative investment. Anytime you see revenue coming into a company, that's always positive, especially early revenue, because it separates that coin from the pack, right? Is that I would say 99.9% of coins never have any. So if you see somebody that's actually selling a product or a service and it's actually working out for something that has potential. I had a mentor one time that says, if you have this is separate, but he said, if you have a business and you have a product or service and one person buys it, then that's proof of your product or service. That means that it's valuable to somebody. So you just have to scale it out. And look for the same type of person that bought it with the same type of need that your product or service filled. And if you find that person and you find them again and again and again, and you scale it out, you can expand. But you have to have somebody that's willing to pay.
Yeah. So let's shift more into AI, because I know you're big on that. I've seen a lot of your posts talking about it, and it's something I've been obsessed with as of late in traditional stock market, and also what cryptocurrencies can do with this as well. One thing that I've been very, very interested about is the lending of compute power, because AI is taking over and we don't have nearly enough energy or compute power to be able to accomplish the things that Zuck, Bezos, Microsoft, etc., whoever it may be, Elon Musk, all these visions in the future, we can't physically do that right now. Zuckerberg talks about building data centers underwater. Bezos talks about data centers in space. There's a figure in crypto behind the Akash network, Greg Asuri, who talks about a decentralized approach. So my question to you there is, how important do you think blockchain and crypto can be from a decentralized manner in keeping compute power and energy not controlled by these central high authorities and institutions, but keeping it, a commodity of the people as well?
I mean, we're running into a time that's very crucial, and I always warn people about this, is that AI is a very powerful tool. And I don't think people realize how people almost see AI as some type of joke, like the average person, ChatGPT. Sometimes you even say like they use ChatGPT as like almost a euphemism to say that something's not done right, right? Like somebody say like, maybe somebody would turn a paper and another student say, oh, it was just ChatGPT. That's almost like it's not good. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. Or if they find out that a video or an audio is ChatGPT, they disregard it. It's almost like a semi joke. But that's not really, that's AI, but it goes a lot deeper than that, right? It's that AI has the power to run, control, and enhance our society in ways we can't even imagine. It's a lot deeper than just that's the very, very small percentage of what AI actually is. Now, the problem is that it has that power. The internet, you're not as old as me, but I remember back in the early 90s when the internet was coming out. The internet was called the information superhighway at first. And between the years of like 1990 to 96, scholars, media, they talked about an age in which ignorance would be gone. Everybody would have access to information. There would be nobody that wasn't educated. People would always, there would be no need for people like real estate agents, all these other things, because people had access to information. So what happened actually is people became less informed. The opposite happened because when you gave people that much information, they don't know what to believe, and they just start believing whatever they wanted. So we've actually had the amounts of people who no longer believe in that we went to the moon and all these other things are rising. Flat Earth is rising, even though the data says that we've done those things. So you have to be careful because AI will, if we're not careful, it could be the same thing. And what I really mean by that is that right now AI is in the hands of 4 companies. Most of the big AI models. Now, those AI models right now are not that advanced. They can't do a lot of things that were, compared to where their potential is. But those AI models were trained on the collective human knowledge, which is all of ours, right? To be honest, that has no owner. But they've used that. They've collected data from the internet, which is our collected things. We've been putting out information. We've been writing articles. We've been doing all these things as a humanity itself. And they've trained these models based on that. And now all of collective human history and human knowledge will be in these 4 models. And instead of people accessing the internet and everything to get this information, we're slowly changed to where we're just accessing these models. And now the people who have control of these models, those are the ones in power because even in ChatGPT, I believe that ChatGPT should be completely open. There should be no no guardrails. But as time is going on, it's stuff you can't even ask. It won't even give you the answer. It just says, nope, won't give you the answer. Oh, I don't agree with that. Or I don't, it won't even tell you. And it should tell you because that's our knowledge. That's not OpenAI's knowledge. That's human knowledge. So it takes all of human knowledge, sucks it into that model, then decides what it tells you. And people are becoming dependent on those models for work, play, and also just understanding things around them. So now these people who own these models, even though AI is supposed to be incorruptible, they've corrupted it by putting guardrails on it, telling it what it can and can't say, and passing regulation, all this stuff to stop AI from telling what the truth actually is. And that's the biggest danger, is that just like with the internet, back when I was saying, is the internet was supposed to be free information, but because of certain things, misinformation, all this stuff, it actually made people worse. So AI could all do the same thing if we're not careful.
Yeah. And then also there's legislation that comes behind these things as well. We've seen with the internet, I believe with the Patriot Act at the time. There's been discussions doing the same thing with AI.
I don't believe
And
in
also
any
people,
regulation. I think AI should be free completely, 100%, whatever you want to do. And we should police the people. You can use a regular policing system to get people who do things wrong with it. But just like any other tool, you should be able to do whatever you want. I can go buy a shovel and do whatever I want with that shovel. But once I do something bad with it, then I get arrested. So I think that's how AI should be. I should be able to get AI and do whatever I want. But if I do something that is against the law, I get arrested for using that tool for malicious behavior.
so based off that, have you looked at any cryptocurrencies like BitTensor or any decentralized AI,
Yeah.
based projects yet?
So one I like a lot is BitTensor. There's one that I like a lot. There's also another one. A Singularity is one, but I think they're all coming into one coin. So yeah, I think that AI. I think that's, and I said this a couple of years ago. I think that that's one of the biggest utilities for cryptocurrency. And it's two reasons for that. One is that I think that these AI models right now, there's corporations that own AI models, and these are they're going to control all our lives one day. But I think there's a chance one day for an AI model to be collectively owned. And what I mean by that is AI model can come to a being one way or another. It can do a offering of tokens or whatever, and we buy those tokens, and whoever owns those tokens owns that model. And as that model performs work, as it performs services, products, or whatever, you can receive some of the money back for that work or products, or services. But it also gives you a choice, people collectively, to vote on how the model is going to change, or guardrails or anything like that, so the people can vote on it instead of being a few players that control it. The second thing is, I think that coins like Ethereum, tokens like Ethereum, coins like Bitcoin, even XRP, is that when AI starts to become more advanced, there's going to be AI personalities. There's going to be AI models that run complete or whole businesses. And these personalities and models may outnumber humans 10 to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1. And they're going to need resources. And the only way those models can run 100% efficiency is that without us completely. Like, they have to have their own source of capital that can go rapidly between the models, back and forth. So maybe one model sells another model data, so that one model can use that data to create a product or service, and he maybe sell it to a third model. So all that has to work fast. And the only way I can see that working fast, especially with the Swift network being so slow, is crypto. And I believe that AI models, as they progress and are more advanced, they're going to choose crypto over fiat currency to do transactions between each other.
Yeah. So what do you think of Sam Altman? OpenAI at first was supposed to be, I can't think of it, a nonprofit. At first, they got funding from Elon Musk, and then obviously they went for profit. Sam Altman's now a multi-billionaire, and the two are kind of going head in head, him and Elon Musk. So do you think he's a positive for this whole thing, or
I
do you
mean,
think he's just...
I think he is a positive. He has a great mind, and he's got us to here to be honest. But I'll just say I don't agree 100% with starting out as an open source nonprofit and changing, because it's almost like it should be. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but that's technically a type of fraud, right? Is that if I start a church and which is a nonprofit, and I collect money from people, and I say, well, I'm not gonna go for it, and I change the church into a for profit, that's technically a type of fraud. I mean, it's not illegal, but I believe that you misled people early on. And I think that that's not right, because even the word open suggests that it's nonprofit, and it should be available for everybody whenever they want it. And then it's closed now. It's not even it's not open like it used to be. So it's open source. It's supposed to be a project that people collectively work on, and everybody has 100% access to it. And that's not what OpenAI is anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately. But now we have the Groks, we have DeepSeek, we have all these different versions. And it's a race, and it's exciting to see. Its competition is good in a free market.
Yeah,
And
we
then,
need that.
yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, we have AI and blockchain, but then we also have quantum computing, which is a whole other layer that I think confuses the hell out of people. And there's the common, narrative that quantum computers can break SHA-256, Bitcoin's algorithm. Do you see that as a threat? Is that something that you can understand yourself? Or
Yeah, I mean, if a quantum computer would, I think 14 million qubits were created today, it would break that algorithm, and it would be able to, through brute force, just break every Bitcoin wallet and clear it out, just through brute force. Just basically knowing the public address of a Bitcoin wallet, trying every possible private key, and remember the network has no, like, when you put in your password 3 or 4 times, it locks up. Well, the Bitcoin
yeah,
network doesn't have that. So if I can try every possible combination, it only takes me like a day. I can break every single public address with just randomly going by private keys until I find the right one. That's called brute force. Now, that could happen if one was created right now. But the thing about technology is that it never happens all of a sudden. Something starts, and then it starts to progress, and as it gets stronger, defenses start to come up against it, and that starts to progress. And by the time the technology is able to do the dangerous thing, the defenses have also progressed to the point where it's blocking it. Like I give you a good example. If I went back to the Civil War, and handed the South a bunch of tanks and machine guns, they would have won the war. But that's not how it works. Is that while the development of all that was going on, we were developing also anti-tank weapons, all these other things, the defenses against those. So by the time you got them, the advantage was not so big. And quantum computers exist, but there's also something else that exists called quantum encryption, in which you use the same quantum computers to encrypt things. Now, right now, Bitcoin does not have that. Most 98% of cryptos don't, but they will. They're not gonna. People don't sit around and allow that much money to just evaporate. They will do something ahead of time to stop it, and which means they'll upgrade all the nodes in almost every Bitcoin network or crypto network to block against that. So by the time we do get to a sufficient quantum computer that can break the wallets, we'll have sufficient defenses against it.
Yeah. And right now, the United States is trying to lead the way. And as Trump says, be the leader in crypto, be the leader in Bitcoin. How do you think that, decentralized projects like a Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're just going to exist globally? It doesn't really matter per se. But how important do you think it is having a figure like him in a nation like the United States being behind crypto in
The
general?
United States has had a history of controlling things that are supposed to be for everybody. The UN is supposed to be for everybody, but where is it located? In New York. The internet is for most people, but most of the nodes are in the United States. So the United States has a history of controlling things that are supposed to be more or less decentralized. So I think that's what Trump is trying to do now, is that bring a lot of the Bitcoin mining over to the United States, bring a lot of the regulation, the companies and everything. So we may not have control of Bitcoin, but we will have proxy control over it through bringing a lot of the choke points or whatever to our side, so we'll have control over it. So I think he's doing good with that, and I'd rather the United States have control over it than somebody else, another country. So I think he's doing the right thing, and we're acting faster than I thought we would have.
Yeah, that's for sure. And speaking of that, just staying on that for a second in regards to nations or nation states having a big impact. We've seen El Salvador, Nayib Bukele have a big impact and fully embrace Bitcoin over there. We're starting to see that elsewhere with treasuries and stockpiles, et cetera, Bitcoin strategic reserve. Do you think that's going to be more of a narrative in the future, not only with Bitcoin, but with Ethereum, XRP, et cetera?
Yeah, I believe that all of those it's best that the United States has control of all of those technologies. You may have to restate your question. I don't know if I 100% understood it.
Yeah. So like Bitcoin strategic reserve, the United States is adopting that. El Salvador kind of has it themselves. Do you think more nation states are going to follow suit and possibly exploring doing that with things outside of Bitcoin like ETH and XRP as well?
Yeah, I think that's going to eventually happen. But I think people are going to stick to the top 10 really, because and I think also I don't think XRP will be held in reserve for a lot of countries outside the United States, maybe Japan or maybe our allies, because we do have a lot of control of XRP through Ripple, and the Ripple is in the United States. So I don't think like Russia is going to start a reserve based on XRP, but I think they would on Ethereum or Bitcoin. I think they would do it on both of those, but I don't think countries that aren't our allies will add XRP to their strategic reserves, because Brad Garlinghouse and Ripple do have a influence over that coin, and that will allow the United States by proxy to have influence over their reserves. So I don't think that's going to happen. But Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think every country eventually will include those in their strategic reserve. Because even in Russia right now, they don't use our banking system. They have their own. They don't use our credit cards anymore. Ever since what happened with Ukraine is that we've cut off they have their own credit cards now. So I don't think they'll be comfortable using XRP in strategic reserves.
Yeah. So let's stay there too then, and maybe talk about stablecoins and fiat currencies, because I think there's a big question mark right now on, in the future, is the United States going to be the global reserve currency? Obviously, the BRICS nations, the past couple of years have explored getting away from that, explored actually digital assets, but Bitcoin isn't really the best medium of exchange. It's become more of a store of value, and that's where maybe RLUSD comes in, or USDC or Tether, also maybe a project like Caspa. but do you anticipate there being a winner per se, or there just kind of being a bunch of options outside of the US dollar?
I mean, I think a stable coin is more likely to be a reserve type currency. I mean, maybe in the future, because right now cryptocurrency is too volatile. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin right now, it's probably down what, like Ethereum's down 4%. I mean, then to be up 4% tomorrow, that's a lot of volatility to have as a reserve currency. That's even a lot of volatility for people to be paid in that. I mean, like if you get, let's say for example, you make $1,000 a week and you get paid yesterday, and now you wake up in the morning, you're down 5%, you just lost $50. You know, it's a lot for somebody that's they could also gain $50, but I think that volatility adds a lot of, uncertainty, and people don't like uncertainty, including countries. So I think they'll more likely use a stable coin, maybe a coin that's attached to gold or something like that in the future. And I don't think they're going to use a stable coin that's attached to the US dollar. So I think that some coin is going to arise in the future, some token or coin, and they're going to use that. Maybe they'll have some type of mechanism to where they can add Bitcoin and Ethereum as like the base coins, and then they'll add like some other stable coin to decrease the volatility and make instead of being 4 or 5%, it'd be like 1% because they have that stable coin in the mix. So maybe some kind of mix like that, but I don't think that right now those coins are ready to be a reserve coin, a reserve currency.
Yeah. I think one thing right now that I see a lot of people on X, myself included, are pretty skeptical and definitely concerned about our central bank digital currencies, which have been a narrative now for the past 4 or 5 years or so. I would say it seems the EU, the UK, and maybe China are leading the way on this, with a plethora of other nations exploring this option. How kind of dystopian and bad can this get in regards to a government controlling every aspect of your life potentially with a central bank digital currency? Does that scare you as well?
I mean, it's no different than now. I mean, like, I think that people are, I mean, I would rather them not have more control, but you have to remember they have control over us like that now. I mean, the IRS, and I'll tell you something else that's happened. Like if you go to the bank and you request over $10,000 in cash, you have to wait for it. And then secondly, if you go around and try to spend that cash, everybody looks at you like a criminal. Even though that's our right to spend cash. If I want to spend cash on everything, I want to buy my car with $40,000 in a duffel bag. I mean, that's my right as an American, but that's seen as criminal now. And the reason why is because the government in the 80s, 70s and 80s, they incentivized credit card and debit card use because credit cards specifically, you can write off the interest on credit cards on your taxes for like the first 10 years of existence. So it encouraged people to use credit cards instead of cash. And then along came debit cards, and then people started using those. And now that's 90% of all purchases. So the government, if they want to, they have access to everything anyway through that. So I don't think, I don't want them to have that extra 10% of control because I still have the right to use cash here and there. But with CDBCs and all these other things, you will have 100% of the control, and all privacy will be gone. But I think we're almost already there anyway. If you use especially with big data, the government has backdoors to all of our social media, which includes location information, and they also have access backdoors to Google, all these other things. If you add all that data together, they have a complete profile of us anyway right now. I don't want that to expand and increase, but the threat is out there, and I don't want to get any further, but I don't think people realize how much they have on us already.
Yeah. And that's another aspect of where blockchain and crypto comes in. You have projects like Filecoin or IAG that's on Cardano. It's, storage, cryptocurrency projects. So do you think it's important in the future to get away from, like you said, the Googles and the government to have backdoors to all aspects of your data? Do you think it's important to decentralize that and have you as, self-sovereign, have that ownership of your own data, so it can't be leaked out there?
I think that's if you go back 100 years, most people took things in cash. So the government had no idea where the money came from. You'd write down on your taxes and you'd pay your taxes, but that's all they knew. Now they know everything. They have access to traffic cameras. So if they know where you drove by places. With all this data, you can put together a profile. They can almost predict what you're going to do. I do believe that we should go backwards and go back to owning our own data, having complete privacy, and I just don't see a future in which they're gonna let us go backwards, but without some type of revolution. But I think that's a better situation, especially with AI. Like with AI, with all the data they collect from us, people have no idea what AI is going to be able to do with that data. They'll be able to predict things that you would say in a conversation. It'll be able to predict the next thing you're going to do in life. They already there's limited instances in which corporations can predict things already. For example, BMW had an algorithm before the rise of AI 4 or 5 years ago that could predict almost down to within a 3-year period when certain people would buy BMWs, because it understood the type of person that would eventually get a BMW, where they were in life and their income and all these other things. And almost with an 80-90% chance, if a person met this profile, they could predict that you would buy a BMW with an 80-90% success rate. And that was before AI, the rise of AI and ChatGPT and all these other things. And they did that through big data, if they had enough data on you. And only the people they had data from. So if AI has access to all this data, it'll be able to do things like that. And now it takes the question of free will away. Now, if they're predicting everything you do, or either putting products or services or decisions in your face because it knows that you would choose one or the other based on the data that's given to you, then that's actually taking away free will. So all these questions are going to exist in the future. And I think that we should, I don't think the average person understands it enough to even start a revolution or nothing. So I think by the time they do have that control over us, most people won't even realize it's happening.
Damn. Yeah, that's been a thing for a long time. Bezos talked about 20 plus years ago, the cookies on your computer, so he can target you with what you want on Amazon,
Exactly.
which we all see now. Also, Larry Fink's an example with BlackRock, with Aladdin. They've had an algorithm, when to buy and get out of stocks, and now they're buying single family homes during COVID for the first time. Crazy. That's a good point, though. Do you think people are just sheep at the end of the day, not to obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put down the masses, but I mean, if you go all the way back to the Roman Empire, whenever the people in control wanted to get the people to allow them to do something, they would always say, the barbarians are at the gate, so you need to give us these powers. And people would be so afraid that they would hand over whatever control that they asked for at that time. And then, like, maybe a month or two, a year or two later, the barbarians are back. We need more power. And they would just keep handing power so they would feel safe. That's the same thing that's happening now, is that the people in power will scare you. Oh, AI is the internet is so bad, child pornography and all these stuff, which are all horrible. So people would give them powers to do things, and they use those powers for something else. And one of the biggest things is even the RICO. Before in the 70s, you could not, it was hard to prosecute people in the mafia, because if you prosecuted somebody in the mafia, it was no way, people in the mafia are always away from the crime. They instruct others to do the crime. So how are you there was no laws in place for you to take a mob boss down. So they created the RICO laws, right? Which in that case made sense, because now if somebody's running a continuing criminal enterprise, you can get them just for, orchestrating the whole thing. But that's perfectly fine. That was needed at the time. But that law got expanded. Now they're going after Sean and regular companies with RICOs, just regular people. Like corporations have got hit with RICOs and all these other things. Like the RICOs were meant for organized crime, but because we gave them those powers, because we were afraid, they used those powers to do a lot more other things. The same thing with taxation. So when there was the government in the early 1900s had no way to ban a substance. They had no way to do that. Like marijuana or whatever, or any kind of drug. There was no way the federal government, it was nowhere in the Constitution they had the power to do that, but they did have the power over taxation. So they used that power of taxation to say, to ban marijuana at first. So what they did is that they said, well, we can't ban marijuana, we don't have the power, but what we can do is we can say, you have to pay taxes on marijuana to sell it. And then they didn't provide the tax certificates or the stamps for you to be able to. So now you're in a situation where I want to sell marijuana, well, you need a tax stamp. Well, what about a tax stamp? We don't have those. So now it's technically banned, And then they use that law to create another law. Now they can ban substances, ban this, ban that. But it was all based on taxation. And one law led into another, and now they have the power to ban all of these things in your life. And it was all based on taxation. Uh, but that's why sometimes you have to be careful when they use the same fear tax. They showed they showed all these movies in the early 1900s about people going berserk and all these other things dealing with drugs. They scared everybody, and then the government got the power to do those things. So I mean, you just have to. I just don't see a future in which that's going to change, because it's been like that for generations, even back thousands of years. I think people are just afraid. The powers that be know how to make them afraid, and they just keep increasing power.
Absolutely. It's human nature at the end of the day.
I think so.
And you know, yeah, and you make a good point. And I'm glad you brought up the Romans too, because when it comes to fiat currencies, we normally see a life cycle, and based off of human nature, the same thing happens to where they inevitably die out. So, we even with examples with Canada and California, the high levels of taxation, it gets to a point where you're drowning constantly. So you have to find a life raft. For most people in our modern day, that's been Bitcoin, right? So to kind of keep your head above water and not go down, but actually continue to increase your wealth over time. So do you think that's just going to continue to play out with Bitcoin? Or do you think Ethereum or XRP or anything else is going to take over that
No, I mean, over
leg?
time, back to another point I made is that the yield is going to start to come down on Bitcoin eventually. So at one day, it's not going to be 8-9% a year, maybe like gold. I mean, that's why it pays to be in these things early, because Bitcoin's not going to go up indefinitely, like every year, 30-40% forever. One day the yields come down, Bitcoin reaches mass adoption, and then it's going to be a regular 8-9% investment, if that, maybe even lower. Because I think that's the way it's going. So you have to get into these things early. And crypto in general will probably be like that. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin over time, it's already been happening. I mean, when I first started, 2011, 20-30% a day was normal either way. Like, it would go up and down. That was just normal. I mean, like, my friend had a joke because we both traded crypto early on. So we get excited. We used to get excited about crypto gains. So I would call him up and say, "Hey man, crypto's up this amount." You see it's down today. So one time I called him and says, "Hey man, crypto's up 19% today. Did you see it?" And it was after like maybe a couple of weeks of being down. And he was joking with me. He said, "Oh man, that's it." He said, "Call me when it's up 20%. He hung the phone up on me, just a joke. But back then that was nothing. Like now, that's a lot. We don't even have those days anymore in Bitcoin. Uh, if ever, like it's almost never happens. But the volatility is starting to come down because we've got derivatives, we got more players in the market, more liquidity. So that tends to drive the volatility down over time. And that's what's happening now. So eventually, it won't be a path to wealth anymore. It'll be a path to preserve wealth and have a hedge against inflation. But you won't be able to buy Bitcoin and one day you'll be rich. It's not going to be like that anymore. And it will expand eventually to all cryptos, to the point where there is no way to make a lot of money. It's just to be a way to preserve wealth.
Yeah. How important do you think yield is then? Staking is an option. I think institutions just had the right to start doing that as of yesterday. I think they can now stake, and Robinhood and Coinbase, these platforms all offer it. But do you think that's something that the average person and institutions are going to look at over
Yeah, I think
cryptos that
so.
don't have that
But
option?
another thing with staking is that over time, like that actually decreases yield on investments because people count the staking as well. Like if you look at in the stock market, dividend stocks perform less than a non-dividend stock, and the reason why is because when people invest, buy and sell, they account for that staking amount. So let's say, for example, a non-dividend stock may go up 9% in a year. And a dividend stock may go up 7% a year. Same similar stock, but it has a 2% yield. So it still adds up to 9%, but the market knows that and is already accounted for. So it's already baked in. So I think that's going to happen eventually to any coin that's staked. So you'll buy a non-stake coin and maybe go up 9-10%. You buy a stake coin, it may only go up 7-8%, but you also get the staking yield. So things tend to balance out in markets like that over time. So, but I always think staking is a good idea, especially now because that hasn't happened yet. So Ethereum goes up a lot more than Bitcoin. I think it still will for the rest of the year, maybe into next year, but you also get the 2, 3, 4% staking. So that's a bonus right now.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the last questions too is, what do you think about the Michael Saylors and the Tom Lees of the world? Do you think they're absolutely nuts for what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Saylor, I mean, he's important in the Bitcoin community, but I don't, the company that he runs, I think it's more of a trust. He doesn't have a lot of operations. It's only a few employees. I've talked to him and met him a couple of times, but he's a great guy. But I just think that those type of companies that are principally Bitcoin trust that don't have any operations aren't good for the consumer because they're going up at a higher rate than Bitcoin, which doesn't make sense. It's be honest, it's trading at a premium, and premiums tend to collapse in down drawdowns. So if you buy MicroStrategy, yeah, you on the upside you'll make a lot of money, but on the downside you lose more than the underlying asset that they hold. So you have to be careful with those, and that's happened time and time and time over again. And I just don't. I mean, it almost always happens. So I believe that's what's going to happen with MicroStrategy. Is that it's going to be a drawdown in crypto one day, a severe drawdown, maybe 30-40%. And then MicroStrategy can go down 60-70% because of the premium value that it holds right now.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, are there any cryptos and stocks that we haven't mentioned yet that you really have your eye on for the future here?
I mean, everything. I think we've talked about everything. I mean, I do like Coinbase is a good stock. I think Gemini is undervalued right now because it did IPO, but IPO didn't do as well as they thought. So there's been some drawdown there, but I think it's going to recover here soon. And just quantum computer stocks, I think that's a good buy for anybody, especially long term, and also nuclear energy, Oklo, a new scale. I think that's going to be a big play in the coming years.
Awesome. So lastly, man, talk to us about your book. Where can the people find it? Where can they follow you on social medias?
Yeah, so I do have would love you guys if you appreciate, you would pre-order the book. So I had a first book was self-published. It did extraordinarily well for a self-published book, but it got picked up by a publisher, Wiley, which is the second or third biggest publisher in the world. So I got assigned a publishing deal with them for 2 books. The first is called The Strategic Millionaire. It's an updated version of my self-published book. So you can pre-order that right now on Amazon. Just look up The Strategic Millionaire, and there's 2 of them out there. You want the one that's gold and black that says updated and expanded, but the old one, no. Buy the new one, pre-order the new one. The second book comes out next year, and it's called The Future of American Wealth. The Future of Wealth is, and it talks about how America has to position itself with emerging technology to preserve American wealth on the country level and also on the personal level. So it'd be a great read for anybody that's trying to build wealth over the next 30, 40 years, especially younger people, because it's going to lay out a plan about how things are going to change and how individuals, countries, and even corporations have to position themselves.
Gotcha. And then lastly, anything you just want to tell the audience before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people this is that we're living in a very unique time. Over the next 10 years, our lives are going to change more than most of human history with quantum computers, blockchain, AI, even nuclear energy, all these other emerging technologies. So you need to be, it's the biggest chance you'll probably have in your life to build wealth and have something you can pass down to your kids, grandkids, and change your entire family's history. So I would encourage people to just pay attention and execute, because one day you'll look back on this and say, what if, or what I should have done, or I wish I could go back, but these opportunities only come once.
Absolutely. Well, Armando, I appreciate you for coming on, man.
Thank you so much.
Guys, make sure to go sub on YouTube, go follow him on Instagram, TikTok, etc. And yeah.
The handle is Tall Guy
And then
Tycoon everywhere. On Twitter or X, I'm sorry, it's _TALLGUYTYCOON. Everywhere else is just Tall Guy Tycoon.